sky's the limit with regards to what you want to or can figure out with your health. The issue is really in discussing with the person, how far do you want to go?
Hmm. Yeah.
Do you want to know about every gene in your genome, or do you want to just kind of focus on health and nutrition? And we look at nutritional genomics, but the basic principles are, we want to not just look at one thing or one aspect. And this is one of the pet peeves I have with some other people or some companies that will come out and say that you need this one thing and you're going to really know your health. You're going to know your wellness. You're going to lose weight if you do this one test. And
Mm.
that's not how the body works.
Yep.
That's just not how it works. Yes, that one thing might be part of the process, but it is not the process.
Right.
We have to look at our gut microbiome. We have to look at our genes in some way. It's important to look at mitochondrial health because the mitochondria is a big topic. They're the
Mm.
energy powerhouses of our cells, and they perform a lot of functions for us. It's important to look at what toxins you're exposed to and what your sensitivities are, because that's kind of the environmental aspect.
Yep.
It's important to look at your inflammatory markers and other blood markers. And it's also helpful to look at imaging. It's important to, look at what your body composition is. For example, this is a good one, is doing a body composition scan. So, it's one thing to measure your BMI, you're just looking at height and weight there and making a calculation. But that's not really as accurate, because there is a such thing called skinny fat, basically, where you may look skinny, but inside you have more fat than you should. And
Mm.
that's still a risk factor
Yeah.
for diabetes and heart disease. And you wouldn't know it or think it because you say, I'm skinny. What's the big deal?
That's
But,
been me before.
yeah. So, so there's that other level of adding imaging to it. So you're looking at your imaging, you're looking at your genes, you're looking at, your microbiome, you're
Hmm.
looking at your environmental exposure, you're looking at some, hormone balance, inflammatory markers. You look at all of those things together. You really can't look at things in isolation. You can't just look at, oh, your mitochondria are imbalanced, therefore we need to do these four things and you'll be good. I mean, you're missing a lot of the picture there. So
Yeah.
that's what I do. I look at all of these elements together. I get all these results in and I sit down and I may spend hours just analyzing and looking for correlations between all these kind of tests, and then come to a conclusion based on that, not based on
Mm.
one observation, but based on multiple observations.
Yes. Everything you just said, I'm smiling right now because it's what I've kind of woken up to in the last, I would say, 2 years, is pretty much everything you just discussed in terms of looking at your microbiome, looking at your mitochondrial health, looking at our environment with toxins. These are all things that you might not see on the surface, but underneath the surface, it's happening, and it's not necessarily overnight. It's happening over years or decades of our lives.
Here's right, right. I give a
So,
snow globe analogy when I talk about this kind of stuff often, and it's like, you have a snow globe, those snow globes that you can buy and give
mhm,
people as gifts. Let's just say we pick a symptom, abdominal pain. Okay, what's the cause of my abdominal pain? Is it just do an abdominal ultrasound or a CAT scan and you'll find the answer? And if it's negative, then you just have IBS?
mhm,
It's not
right,
that simple.
right,
The answer to what causes abdominal pain is shake the snow globe and look at all the snowflakes.
mm,
All of those things and all those snowflakes and how they interact with each other and how one may push another, how it may go in this direction or that direction. That's what's causing your abdominal pain. And that's why we
mm,
can't just look at one snowflake. We have to look at the entire system, what's
yeah,
happening in the entire system, how those differentiated elements are interacting with each other. And then you can understand the abdominal pain.
yeah. That's such a great analogy. I think it's actually a really good definition of what integrative medicine is. It's a makeup of so many different elements, and you can't just look at one thing and put a band-aid over it and expect everything to be fixed. It's looking at the
Exactly.
entire puzzle. There's a lot that you've discussed. I kind of want to go down further here. Let's start with microbiome. What do we need to know about our microbiome in terms of how it impacts our overall health, and what we can be doing to improve the health of our microbiome?
There's so much. This is a very continually evolving science.
Hmm.
It's probably not probably, it's never going to be done, most
Yeah.
likely, because there are so many different discoveries being made. And I think the important thing to understand is the basic principle that there are trillions of microbes, which means bacteria.
Hmm.
It's actually bacteria, viruses, fungi. So people think it's just bacteria. It's not just bacteria. There are other guys there, but bacteria are the main guys there. And there are trillions of these inside of your digestive tract. They're actually on your skin. They're in your mouth. They're in probably every orifice of your body.
Hmm.
But for our purposes, we're talking about the gut because that's the headquarters, basically. And these guys make our vitamins, they run our metabolism, they influence our mood, can influence our sensation of or degree of pain.
Hmm.
They do so many different things. They create anti-inflammatory things, they can drive inflammation, they can protect us, they can harm us. So it's all about balance when we're looking at the microbiome. There are thousands of articles on the microbiome, and some may say one thing, some may say the other thing, but at the bottom line, where everybody agrees, is that diversity of the microbiome is a sign of resilience and
Yep.
strength.
Hmm.
And so that is no matter who you are or where you're from, that's a core principle. And the other core principle to understand is that me and you, we're both humans, we're both men, but our microbiomes are probably only 10 to 20% similar if you
Hmm.
look at it. So if I say, paleo diet is the best diet for everybody, this got to be universally wrong,
Right.
because how could it be? Because everybody's so different. There are like what, 8 billion plus people on the planet,
Yep.
and if you say each one is 10 to 20% similar only, that means that there's 80% or so difference between people.
Yeah.
So how could everybody have to eat the same thing?
Right.
And so this is the biggest farce in health and wellness, when people come and say everybody's got to eat the same thing. No, that's just wrong.
Are
There
you,
is no universal diet.
right.
Diet. I don't even like the word diet.
Right.
Diet is just a word we use to describe eating, basically, but it's
Hmm.
really a nutrition plan, or an eating style.
Yep.
Basically, I refer to it as often.
So are you
And
a
so
fan
this is a key
of
principle.
us? Sorry to interrupt you there. Are you a fan of us looking at what our ancestors ate and kind of try to replicate that as much as we can in terms of like regions?
Well, I think, our ancestors also grew up in a different place,
True.
in a different time, and in a different environment.
Hmm.
So that takes us to the next topic with regards to the microbiome. The microbiome changes and shifts with a lot of different influences.
Mm.
Where you are living, where what exposures you have, what toxins you have. If you imagine, let's say 300 years ago, your ancestors, did they have Roundup? Did they have air pollution like we have
Right.
now? Did they have all these other, flame retardants?
Yeah.
Did they have, polysorbate 80 in their food? No. So our microbiomes are most likely much different. Overall in the temperament of it
Hmm.
than it was back then.
True.
Perhaps there were even different microbes then that evolved as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. We weren't sequencing microbiomes of Iceman. So
True.
there are a lot of things that influence the microbiome. So you were also asking. So a diet's one that we talk about a lot,
Hmm.
and sometimes that's the only thing we talk about.
Yeah.
But that's actually not the only thing. There are a lot of things like exercise, very
Mm.
basic things that you think are just overly basic, but there's not.
Right.
There's a lot of literature showing that exercise, sleep habits, your exposure to toxins, how much stress you have, and even your living environment, how much
Hmm.
social cohesion you have in your neighborhoods. They've seen that these factors can actually influence the balance of your microbiome. So
Yeah.
our microbiome is like the antenna on our head if we were an ant walking around.
Right.
It's really our sensory organ as well, in a sense, because if something's happening, they may shift to try to adapt to that situation. In a way, that's a good thing because we don't die if we, accidentally are exposed to Roundup. But
Mm,
if it happens continually, then things just go awry. It's
sure.
only so good. If you keep beating it up over and over again, then it may start working against you.